Hello. I hope that your holiday break is going much more smoothly than mine has been for the last 15 minutes. I've tried to make this video about 5 different times, and there's so many people in this house that are trying to get my attention that I've had to start over a bunch of times. My brother called me in the middle of one of my videos,
Why did you call me so many times when I was trying to make my video?
I have no idea.
and my sister just yelled at me, "Happy holiday break."
Oh my!
So, deep breaths. I'm going to try this again. Anyways, I hope that you are having a good break, and I hope that you got something that you really wanted. I wanted to show you one of the things that I got from my friend yesterday. My friend Sarah, she gave me this candle, and it's called Forbidden Forest, and it's supposed to smell like trees, darkness, and magic. And if you haven't caught on by now, this is a Harry Potter themed candle. The Forbidden Forest is a place in the Harry Potter series, and so we both really love Harry Potter, so she gave me this candle, and it smells super good, and I'm really excited about it. But anyways, welcome back to another I didn't read the book that I said I was going to version of my book club, and let me explain that. So, a lot of you have seen To All the Boys I've Loved Before on Netflix, but what you might not realize is that it's actually a book trilogy. So, there's 3 books written by Jenny Han, and they are the first one is To All the Boys I've Loved Before, the second one is P.S. I Still Love You, and the third one is Always and Forever, Laura Jean. And the reason that I started reading actually the second book, which is P.S. I Still Love You, which is the book that I'm going to be talking about today, the reason that I picked that up is because my sister and I were watching the movie on Netflix the other night, and I decided that I wanted to know what was going to happen. So I had previously bought the whole trilogy, and now I decided that I was going to read it. So if you are someone who is either going to see the movie when they get the sequel on Netflix, or if you don't want any spoilers, then you should pause the video now. If you are somebody that either doesn't care and you want the spoilers, or you've already maybe read P.S. I Still Love You, or you're wondering if you should, then I would say keep watching. So when I started reading the second book, the number one thing that I was curious about it was what is the second movie going to look like? And I was really surprised to find that there are some discrepancies between where the first book ends and where the second book begins compared to the movie. So in the movie, at the very end, you've got everything, is good with the hot tub scene. Like, Margot helps Laura Jean take down the video, and Laura Jean hands this letter to Peter on the lacrosse field, and they're, together forever and whatever. But actually, in the first book, the ending, it actually begins with Dear Peter. So, I'll even show you. Dear Peter. So she has not actually written the letter yet at the end of the first book. And that's, not as significant, because then she gives it to him at the beginning of the second book. But one of the things that is very different is that in the second book, one of the things that Peter and Laura Jean are kind of fighting together, one of the main conflicts, or kind of what starts a lot of the conflict, is that the hot tub video gets put on an anonymous Instagram page. That's in the second book. So Peter and Laura Jean are together for real when this video comes up, and it's not as easy to get rid of in the book as it was in the movie. So in the movie, Margot just sends the letter to Instagram, and it gets taken down, and there's the picture on her locker, and then it's done. But in the second book, the video keeps kind of popping up and popping up and popping up, and there's different memes that get created based on the video and all this stuff. And that's one of the strains on Peter and Laura Jean's relationship, especially when Laura Jean is convinced, she knows that it is Jen that put the video on Instagram, but Peter doesn't really believe her. And that's kind of, I would say, the main conflict in this book is all of the different things that have a strain on Peter and Laura Jean's relationship. So it starts off with kind of this general awkwardness about the relationship. So one of the things that I really like about this book series is that it's very relatable and very accurate to how I think not even just teenagers, but most people would react in a new relationship. So everything is kind of awkward, and you can feel that in the writing. When you read the book, you feel a little bit awkward because that's what Laura Jean is going through. When Laura Jean and Peter were together the first time, it wasn't a real relationship. It was just this kind of this fake thing that they were using. And so nothing really mattered as much as it does now, because in the second book they're together for real, and now all of a sudden Laura Jean doesn't really know what she's supposed to act like when she's in a relationship, because it's never really happened for her before. And one of the other things that really affects her is that Peter has been in a relationship before. He was with Jen forever, and so he already knows kind of how he acts in a relationship. But Laura Jean doesn't know that about herself yet. So one of the things that she has to work through in this book is what does Laura Jean look like when she's in a relationship? What kinds of things is she okay with? What kinds of things is she not okay with? And again, I think that that's super relatable, especially for somebody getting into a new relationship or somebody who's getting into a relationship for the first time. You kind of have to know where your own personal boundaries are, where your own kind of personal ideas about what being in a relationship looks like, because relationships are different for every person. And so Laura Jean's really trying to figure that out, and that's a little bit of a strain on her and Peter's relationship, because Peter is so used to being in a relationship and Laura Jean is not. And so he doesn't have to figure that out, but she does. So that's one of the strains on their relationship. Another strain is that, Peter he's a nice guy. We know he's a nice guy. And when Jen kind of starts going through some issues in her life, she turns to Peter, and Peter is there for her. But he's not 100% transparent with Laura Jean about it. And so that hurts Laura Jean, because her entire first relationship with Peter was all about Jen. And now she's kind of feeling like her second relationship with Peter is all about Jen as well. And so he keeps hurting her in that way. And one of the other big things in this book, if you remember from the end of the first movie, at the very, very end, Kitty answers the door and there's a boy standing there, and he has one of the 5 letters that Laura Jean wrote, and it's written to John Ambrose McLaren, and he is one of the other strains on Peter and Laura Jean's relationship. So John used to be a part of the neighborhood kind of crew of kids that hung out together, which included Peter and Laura Jean. And so that's kind of where Laura Jean developed a crush on him, was through, having this gang of neighborhood kids. And he gets his letter, and he and Laura Jean, he doesn't just show up at her house like it says in the movie, but he and Laura Jean are pen pals for a little while. They exchange letters, and then eventually he comes back to town, because Laura Jean sets up kind of this reunion party, because the treehouse that they played in as kids is coming down, so she invites all the neighborhood kids back to the neighborhood so that they can spend, some time in the treehouse for the last time, and John Ambrose is one of those people. So he shows up and he kind of rekindles his relationship or his friendship with all the people that used to be in the neighborhood gang, especially Laura Jean. John tells Laura Jean that he likes her, and Laura Jean and Peter have already been having all of these issues, and then here comes John Ambrose McLaren, and he kind of throws another wrench into it, and I told you that this was going to be full of spoilers, so here is one of the spoilers. Laura Jean and Peter do break up. Kind of, I don't know, I'd say about right here, maybe, they break up. And Jen is a part of that. The mistrust is part of that. The awkwardness and kind of not knowing how to act around Peter is part of that. And John is probably part of that too. So they have all these issues. They break up. John tells Laura Jean that he likes her. They hang out a little bit, but in the end, Laura Jean kind of realizes that even if she liked John, she would never be able to put him first because it's Peter for her. And so I'm not going to get into the entire end of the book, but I did really like this book. It was an easy read. It took me 2 days to get through it. And I think one of the most important parts of this book is that it's not just a relationship book. This is not just like a young adult, kind of romancy kind of book. This is a book about sister relationships, the sister relationships between Laura Jean and Kitty especially, and how I think that relationship is going to develop and grow as Kitty gets older and as, Margot is away and Laura Jean is kind of in charge now. I think that is one of the really cool parts about this book. I think the relatability is a really cool part about this book, and how all of these different elements that I feel like are part of teenagers' lives all the time, like awkwardness and confusion and passion and, the part where they're losing the treehouse is kind of like you're losing your childhood and you don't really know how to handle that. There's so many different elements of this book that I think are relatable, and obviously the writing is good, the story's good. I don't think that this is just a book for girls. I think boys would like this too. It's a piece, it's a writing about teenagers and the things that they go through, and it just happens to kind of focus on these two people and their relationship, but I think that a lot of this is super relatable to most people. So if you have any interest in it, I would suggest picking it up. It's a good one, especially because there is going to be a second movie, a sequel to All the Boys I've Loved Before, and I really like reading books before I see the movie just so that I can kind of compare them. Anyways, let me know if you read it, and I would love to talk to you about it. And in the meantime, Happy New Year!